back in was what 2001. So we had just moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, from Rock Hill, South Carolina. So I remember I was working at Sam's Club. So I worked the night shift, and so I had I can't remember whether I had went to sleep and woke up because well, when I got off of maybe about 7 in the morning. So um I had when I think I did I when I woke up I remember I had set up my sewing table because I sewed a lot back then. So I was setting up my sewing table and had it in my bedroom, and so I turned the TV on, and they had was the news was on, and they was saying how I do remember. I can't remember whether I saw the first plane, but I think when the news channel was on, the first plane had just hit. And I do remember the second plane because it was just like they were kind of freaking out, like, it was a second plane. I remember one of the newscasters saying, um, you know, because I think they were thinking the first one, was an accident. And I think when the second hit, I think I remember them saying that they don't believe this was an accident. And I remember almost panicking because I'm like, well, what are the chances of two planes hitting the World Trade Center, as an accident? And so when I kept listening to them, and then I had a cell phone. No, I had a home phone. I don't think I had a cell phone at the time, but the home phone wasn't working, and so I'm freaking out because I couldn't call anybody. And so I remember leaving the apartment and going to find a payphone. So I went up to the store. So payphones back, it was you could find them all day long still then. So I do remember calling. I think the first place I called was the phone company. Like my phone ain't working. Um, and so I don't remember. I think it was because of the networks may have been down at that time. I don't know, but I do remember after that going back home. I was kind of freaking out. Like, what is going on? Nobody was home but me. So I think I do remember just being scared, not really knowing what was going on, what was happening, and why. But they kept talking about. I heard people talking about terrorist attacks, and so just being in, I guess, a capital city, how things kind of go through your mind, like, could we be next? Just being afraid of what, not really knowing what to do in situations like that because, I had never experienced anything like that in my lifetime. So what do? I remember in schools when there was like tornado, we do tornado drills and things like that. So was there kind of drill for something like that? What do? You can never be prepared for something like that. So, and I do remember I had to work that evening, and I do remember going to work. And our break room we had a TV, and so nobody was really working, because I do remember they would lock us in the building. This was Sam's Club, so we would be locked in the building. So when we would go on break, we stayed longer because on the news we was trying to figure out what was going on, and it was almost like we really wasn't talking because everybody was trying to hear what the newscaster what they were saying. So it was a really eerie feeling, to know that. And then they were showing people jumping out of the buildings that couldn't get out. It's like they kept showing that, and to see people trying to escape the fire, death, to eventually jump into their death. So, it was crazy, and I couldn't imagine like what was going through their mind. And they're trying to not burn up. So they're jumping out of the windows of I don't know how many stories high, to jump into their death. So just all of that was just it was just something like a movie. It was surreal. It wasn't, you didn't think it was reality. So it was just so much going on, and it was devastating, just to know um that somebody was that evil, um, to do that and to kill themselves to actually hurt someone else. What kind of mindset? does a person have to have that you're willing to die to make sure that you've inflicted as much pain on others as you possibly could? I think my security being in the US before this happened, I mean, I felt pretty safe. You know, I would never imagine something like that happening. Um, and I guess after that, it was just like if that can happen, because I think it was a total of four planes that was hijacked, three or four. So I think it was four. Um, the kind of relaxed security we had, like our airports had, that some people can get, would be able to hijack planes, not just one or two, but four. Um, it was just like then anything is possible. So you kind of walked around suspecting anybody. I don't think I ever. I guess as a black person, knowing how we were looked at, suspiciously by people. When you go in stores, you notice people following you around because of maybe your skin color. Now I'm looking at people of Middle Eastern descent with suspicion. Unfortunately, um, it wasn't right. But I think in light of what happened, it was I guess a natural thing to do. Um, because you just didn't know who was who. You didn't know who was here for a better life in the U.S. or who was here because of a vendetta or whatever they had to bring as much death and destruction to the U.S. So it was, just it was a crazy time. I don't think I ever in my lifetime felt anything like that. I mean, even thinking back now, I think every time 9/11 that date comes up, you can't even really say September the 11th or 9/11 anymore without remembering that date. That was such a significant event that happened. And just seeing the rubble, just the soot and stuff from the collapse of the building, and knowing people were still in there. Just hearing all the horror stories. I do remember of one of the ladies used to work with. She was a friend of mine. She was from New York, and her sister actually worked um, in the trade center, and she never missed a day of work, never called out, never late. That particular day, she was late for work, and just hearing that, her sister just telling that story, knowing that her sister never missed work and was never late for work. And on that particular day, I've heard stories like that. And then also, I think it was a husband that was on the plane that actually called his wife. So just hearing all the different stories about the people that, they were able to contact their loved ones and tell them what was going on, and that would be their last time. Hearing, just seeing the destruction, and I think what constantly stays in my mind is, like I said, the people jumping to their death. That will, I guess, forever be etched in my memory. That was horrific. And I understand the media coverage of this, but I look and if that was my loved one and that's what I remember their last moments being, I really don't know how I would view the media after that.